I'm the only child of a working single mother who lived and breathed journalism. And so I thought for many years that I'd be a journalist, and I was a journalist both in high school as well as at UC San Diego.
John and I were acquaintances in college. I remember John as an avid journalist, sports fan, and a gregarious individual.
John and I met the day after Labor Day in 1980 in New York City in former President Nixon's office.
Mr. Nixon died in April of 1994. My first marriage unraveled the following year. So there was a period in my life of considerable conflict, and out of that, I began to understand that I was being called to something related but different. It was ordained ministry. So I went to seminary, I got myself ordained a deacon and a priest in the Episcopal Church.
Another important goal for both of us, which is also well underway, is the establishment of affordable housing.
And where we are right now is that in Riverside, we have 50 units of permanent supportive housing open and occupied. 2 projects of affordable and permanent supportive housing are under construction in Orange County, and about 8 more are on the drawing board. Sometimes I'm asked how one should find their way to religion or spirituality as a vocation. And my answer is usually, don't worry, it'll find you. Come to particularly an undergraduate institution like UC San Diego and learn as much as you can. Study history, study biology, see how the universe is constructed, and experience the kind of integrative joy of a classic undergraduate education where you learn as much as you can and then see how it all fits together and then knit that together in your view of yourself as a person in the world who has power and authority to make it a little bit better than you found it. And if you end up doing that in a religious setting, all the better.
Congratulations, John, on being a change maker. You have been that for me, for our family, for our friends, for our children. You have been a blessing for all of us, and I'm just delighted that you're now able to extend those gifts to the entire Episcopal community of Los Angeles.